live. Thank you. Let's stand for a moment of silence and the pledge. And now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call our meeting to order. Is there approval of any minutes listed? Okay. We'll move forward with Commissioner reports and comments. Vice President Baker.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for getting up early and getting to our meeting. I'd just like to comment on the ribbon cutting and the opening of our Public Safety Training Center this past week. It was an awesome ceremony, great speakers. It's going to be an unbelievable facility. Looking forward to the future projects and advancements for that center. And I just want to thank all that was involved in putting that ribbon cutting together. It was an awesome event and an awesome experience. So thanks to everyone.
Thank you. Commissioner Kiefer.
Well, I'll just echo those comments. That was a nice evening, a good moment for Washington County. Not only does it help make our first responders safer as they respond to calls, it helps our community stay safer when they need calls themselves to respond to them. I did just a little bit of math, and I was told by our former CFO that around $6 million of speed cam revenue went into building the Public Safety Training Center. I know that was alluded to that evening. That amounts to about 150,000 tickets. So that money went directly into building the Public Safety Training Center and getting it completed a little sooner than it otherwise would have been. The only other second comment I have, I was contacted by a citizen recently. I suppose they were searching the Maryland case judiciary search, and Washington County's name comes up many times, as to be expected. We are involved in some legal issues from time to time. It's been a while, I think, since our board's had an update on those legal issues. When the time is appropriate, if we could get an update on things that Washington County is facing. I know at the end of the day it can impact our budget if we have to, it just impacts our budget. Sure. And it would be nice to get an update on those legal issues that we're facing. We did at one time, and it's been a while, and okay, just would like an update on those legal issues.
Yep, we can do that.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you. Commissioner Wagner?
Yeah, I'd agree with the last comment Commissioner Kiefer made about you getting a little bit of an update. I don't like being on the street and then someone come up and talk about something that's pending with the county, and I say something maybe I'm not supposed to say or don't know that there's something pending, and then I find out after a date. Just sensitive materials that maybe we know because we communicate with so many people. Reason, I don't know if you all know the reason we started early. We had a couple reasons, but the first reason, we were out at, there was a luncheon later today with the city, but we're sponsoring, but we had a flag raising this morning out at the Board of Elections on Virginia Avenue because and we've installed three. They were without a flag pole, so we installed 3 flag poles and had that flag raising ceremony this morning for obviously our flag, the county flag, and the Maryland flag. And again, public safety training. It was a great event. A lot of people. It was very well done. I do want to thank staff for and all of our people that put that on and were able to make it such an organized and great event. And on a side note, I did contribute quite heavily with speed cameras to the development of that site. So I should maybe have a plaque or something. Can we do that for the speed camera fines? But anyway, it was nice, and it's gonna be a big turning point for training for us and for neighbors too. You know, that's police also, fire, rescue, and neighboring counties and communities will be able to use that training center. And I'd encourage you to try to arrange a tour sometime because it was well thought out. At least in my opinion, it was. That's all I have.
And Commissioner Wagner, thank you for your contributions. I too attended the Public Safety Training Center, It is going to be a state-of-the-art facility providing better training to our career volunteers in the county to help protect you, but maybe one of the most important things, it'll also give them the skills and training to protect each other as they're responding for these emergencies and on the scene. Also attended the Smithsburg Steam and Craft Parade. It was a great turnout for that community. It returned back to the town of Smithsburg after a 2-year hiatus for various reasons, but it was small town America, small town Washington County at its best. Last week, I also attended the C&O Canal headquarters grand opening. It had been delayed through COVID and other issues. It was a great turnout, and it's a source of pride for the town of Williamsport to have the headquarters located right at the canal, the midpoint of the canal, with most mileage of the canal in Washington County. And it was a great day for all of Washington County to have a national park headquarters located and in our boundaries. Also attended the MML meeting last night. Again, it was good to get around the mayors and other elected officials and hear their comments. And today I also attended early this morning the Board of Elections flag raising ceremonies. Thanks to the Board of Elections, they do a wonderful job for our county. And that concludes my report. We now will go to staff comments. Staff, Ms. Condo, please come forward, introduce yourself in the matter.
Good morning, Commissioners. Deborah Condo, Deputy Director of Human Resources. I'm here to request approval to promote Brittany Price to the Retirement Coordinator position. This will be a grade 13, step 4, annual salary, $56,722.
Commission comments, motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and second, any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
4-0.
I'd also like to request approval to hire Michelle Gordon for the CFO position. This will be a grade 20, step 15, annual salary, $127,525.
Motion to approve.
There's a second?
Second.
Have first and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Any other staff in the audience? Please come forward, introduce yourself. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kelsey Mace, Interim Chief Financial Officer. I'm here seeking approval for a budget adjustment in the amount of $28,195 for funds that were deposited into the Sheriff Alternative Fund. These funds will be used towards the purchase of a backup server.
Commissioners' thoughts, comments?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have first and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, 4-0, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other staff? Okay, seeing no other staff, anybody else? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Commissioners, the Town of Williamsport has requested a letter of support for 2 initiatives they are pursuing. One is for a grant for the purchase and renovation of Springfield Manor House to complete a living history center for tourism. The other project that they are seeking Commissioner support for is relocation of the Route 11 bridge to a site just north of its current location. They are beginning discussions with the State Highway Administration regarding that and would like a letter of support for both of those projects.
I think they supplied us some draft language.
They did.
Have you drafted any of those letters yet for us to review?
No, they had provided a possible draft, but we have not drafted anything until we.
Commissioners, in general, you would support a consensus for those letters depending upon review of the draft. Is that okay?
I'm in support of a letter.
Yeah. All right, there you go. 2 of them. Kirk, anything else?
That's it this morning.
The County Administrator?
Thank you, President Klein. Good morning, Commissioners. Just a few things, and some of them have been mentioned already, but I did want to thank our Public Works staff for doing the work on the flagpoles at the Board of Elections. It really looks good. If you get a chance to go out there and see that, and I appreciate the Board of Elections this morning doing that before our meeting this morning, and it was a nice ceremony. But our staff, there was a need. Somebody raised raised a question about, hey, we need a flagpole with the Board of Elections, and our staff took care of that and got that installed, obviously prior to the election in November. So when everyone's coming in, the new flagpole is there. So I do want to thank our Public Works staff, and also to thank all of our county staff who had anything to do with the ribbon cutting at the Public Safety Training Center. It was a great event. And the final thing I'll say about that is that obviously the county's already planning for the next phases. This was phase one. This Board of County Commissioners is already, some of it's already programmed. We're also looking at how to make that happen even faster. So we recognize that there's more work to be done, and this board is committed to that. So, and staff is looking at that at the moment, and we'll be back to talk to the board about that in the near future. And the last thing is that there's no county commissioner meeting next week, so we won't meet for 2 weeks. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. No more staff reports. We'll continue to move forward. Next on the agenda is citizens' participation. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment about an issue or issues of county practices and interests. This is not an interactive dialogue or a question and answer session. It is solely time to hear citizens' comments. Please limit your remarks to as close as 3 minutes or under as possible. Beginning with the front row, is there anybody here for citizens' comments? If so, please come forward, introduce yourself and your address for the record. And good morning to you.
My name is Demira Crummett, 1401 Haven Road. My name is Demira Crummett, and I am in my junior year with the University of Phoenix, working towards my bachelor's in social work. I am passionate about advocating for change and equality. I'm here to inquire about funding for and shine a light on community resources and programs. I'd like attention drawn to the homeless community, with more resources and support available for them. Homeless individuals are exposed to unsafe and unsanitary living conditions. Due to inadequate housing and resources, homeless individuals are subject to violent crime, as well as running risk for disease and infections. With proper funding, compassion, patience, and understanding about different groups within our community, we can make this community better as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Continuing with citizens' participation, front row, sir, please come forward, name and address for the record. Thank you. And good morning to you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Tom Thorson. I live at 13832 Ideal Circle in Hagerstown. I chose to retire here after living and working in Europe for an American company. For disclosure purposes, I'm not a candidate or have not donated money or time to any of the commissioners in this election cycle. I do not own or have invested in any businesses or commercial land within Washington County. I'd like to talk about two things briefly. Surplus warehouses in the area and surplus funds. Washington County, the city of Hagerstown, and Williamsport has separate long-range comprehensive plans, and the county is in the process of finalizing the next long-range plan. Commercial zoning, which includes warehouses, has always been part of these long-range plans. By my calculations, warehouses take less than 2% of the county land, and up to 30% of the county land is set aside for preservations. I personally visited every park in Washington County, and I think there's almost 70, okay, between city and county and national. I commend the foresight of the county commissioners and the mayor and council of Hagerstown and Williamsport for attracting these warehouses to our area. Personally, I would like to see more warehouses if the current long-range plan allows. 2 Amazon warehouses are in the city limits, and we collect over $210,000 per year in real estate taxes. I once saw someone complain to Mayor Keller about Amazon warehouses. She responded that this revenue helped make it possible to give city employees a raise. Some residents are asking to fully fund the school budget, which I am at loss exactly what that means. Should you fully fund every county budget request? I don't think so, or we will go broke. I realize warehouses cause more traffic on our interstate highways, and most of the funds for improvements come from the federal government, and our current House of Representative, David Trone, and his predecessors have not been successful in obtaining these badly needed highway funds. If we don't allow more warehouses, I'm sure Mike Ross of the Franklin County Development Authority in Pennsylvania would gladly want this new tax base and employment for their residents. Moving warehouses across the Mason-Dixon line to nearby Greencastle and State Line may not decrease the traffic in our local interstates. Discouraging warehouses would just be a huge mistake. I'd like to talk a little bit about the surplus funds now, if I could. By my calculations, the Washington County has 200-plus charities that do not seem to be organized in a way to completely reach the maximum potential for helping our citizens in need. The charities could use shared overhead expenses and reduce capital expenses. I don't see this in our county. I think all the charities are great, and my wife and I financially support many of them. The human return on investment can greatly increase if all the charities work together. I realize charities and NGOs seldom merge throughout the world unless there's a financial crisis. I personally see a target-rich area for savings in our charity sector, thus freeing substantial funds for those residents in need. Some ideas I have are, 1, sharing space. Frederick does this with one building downtown where many of the charities are located, thus reducing their operating expenses, a one-stop shop. 2, shared personnel in the back offices, example, accounting, HR, payroll, IT, purchasing, tax preparations, receivables and payables. 3, a common vehicle pool. Nonprofits don't use their vehicles 24/7. Why can't they share? 4, will some of the charities with similar synergies be willing to merge? I realize the commissioners cannot direct these charities what they can and can't do, but the commissioners do have the power to deny surplus funds and grants to those charities who do not collaborate. I would suggest collaboration be a prerequisite before any request for funds from the county be given. This would need to be backed up with hard examples what the charity is doing today or in the future to collaborate. I would be willing to donate my time to the county and charities to work through this process. I have many years' experience working for a Fortune 500 company, consolidating and merging offices and manufacturing plants around the globe. I guess, do you as current or future commissioners have the political will to make collaboration between the charities a prerequisite before giving surplus county funds? I hope you will, and I would gladly help. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Continuing with citizens' participation. Anyone in the next row? Please come forward. Name and address for the record, please. And good morning.
Hi, my name is Krista Berry, and I actually live in Allegheny County, 720 White Avenue, Cumberland, Maryland. I'm here to represent Casa of Western Maryland, which is actually Washington County and currently Allegheny County merged together. Just wanted to talk a little bit about Casa of Western Maryland. Casa is a court-appointed special advocate program in which our agency trains volunteers for community to advocate and mentor Washington County's foster children and youth. Casa serves children and youth appointed CASA serves children and youth appointed to the program by area judges, attorneys, and Department of Social Services. The children in our program range anywhere from birth to 21 years of age, but the average age of our children is 10. During the past year, CASA has served 20 area foster children and youth in Washington County. All children are part of our program are served by a dedicated volunteer who will travel to visit the child no matter where they are placed. The children with us are primarily with the program because a judge or an official has seen them as a child who would benefit from our advocate or mentor program. Someone in our program becomes their personal cheerleader and knows the ins and outs of the case. CASA was founded in the 1970s when a judge in Washington state realized he was making a very big and permanent decision for children in foster care. If the child returned home, there could be a reoccurrence of abuse or neglect. If the child was adopted, then it becomes a separation of family. And if the child stays in the system, then they languish without permanency. So CASA was founded. Today, more than 950 programs exist in the United States. The local program in Washington County was founded more than a decade ago and has served hundreds of children in the foster system. Our agency has a local office on Business Parkway and a dedicated Washington County staff member and a desire to see the program grow. 99% of children served by the CASA program in Washington County during 2022 was part of the program due to drug dependency component in their family. The children we serve can live in foster families, kinship placement, group homes, or hospitals who focus on individualized medical care. In April of 2021, CASA of Washington County became part of CASA of Western Maryland, and we had seen a significant interest in our program. However, due to limited funding opportunities, our program is currently only serving 13% of Washington County in comparison to Allegheny County, who is currently serving about 50% of foster children and youth. The program has a significant volunteer interest and a strong ability to grow. CASA is a unique program in that all children are served by a volunteer who give their greatest gift, which is time and talent. Our CASA volunteers come from all backgrounds, and we enjoy a very diverse group of volunteers. Over the past year, 20 volunteers have served Washington County's foster children and youth. CASA creates one-on-one relationships for foster children and a CASA volunteer. Though there are exceptions with sibling groups, children with CASA volunteers are likely to receive more services, have more opportunities at school, less likely to re-enter foster care, and have an additional resource in their lives for more common day-to-day needs. Volunteers who come from all backgrounds, and to be a CASA volunteer, they must undergo a rigorous process to ensure a safe and healthy relationship with the foster child. This includes 30 hours of training, background checks, references, and applications, monthly meetings with the CASA staff, quarterly reviews, 12 hours of continuing education, and our program is very inclusive and well to serve the foster children. I was a CASA volunteer prior to becoming a board member for CASA, and I served a kinship family that had 5 children placed with their grandmother. Very challenging for kinship custody as they do not receive any support or funding. In closing, CASA is requesting funding to support the day-to-day operations for Washington County. When the former program closed their doors, CASA of Western Maryland absorbed Washington County. No money or program supplies was conveyed to the program, so we started from the ground up. Our goal in 2023 is to see 50% increase in children served by offering 3 new CASA volunteer trainings in 2023 in Washington County. Our mission is that every foster child and youth in Washington County has a safe and permanent home. Children and youth in foster care are some of Washington County's most vulnerable populations. They are often the silent victims and often end up in placement through no fault of their own. The main goal as we look towards 2023 is to serve many children and youth as possible, because every child in Washington County deserves an advocate, a mentor, and a cheerleader to help them grow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Continuing with citizens' participation. Anybody else come forward? Hearing none, we'll move forward. Seeing none, we'll move forward with character counts. I think we have some representatives here. Folks, would you come forward and have a seat and introduce yourselves and the matter?
Good morning, I'm Carolyn Brooks. My address is 19207 Jamestown Court, Hagerstown.
My name is Alicia Teleski. I represent Big Brothers Big Sisters on Character Counts Coalition. My address is 18306 Misty Acres Drive in Washington County.
October's Character Counts Month, and I thank you this morning for your time to hear about some of the activities that we're going to be doing. October, as I said, is Character Counts Month, and there's a specific week in October that we really hope to pay a lot of attention to character counts. A little bit of history. The coalition was formed in 1999, and it is part of a national organization. Character Counts is about 6 pillars. It's trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. And on those 6 pillars, we build an advocacy for teaching the golden rule throughout the community. Some people think that Character Counts is strictly for children, and even though I personally believe that it is important to start to teach these pillars and strategies to young people, the Character Counts initiative here in Washington County is for children as well as adults, because adults are the role models for their children. So our coalition does meet monthly, and it includes students. We are partnered with the public school system. We have other partnerships, the Hagerstown Housing Authority, Big Brothers Big Sisters, and we do meet monthly to make plans to be sure that our information does get out into the community. Our focus is random acts of kindness. Sometimes people think that's insignificant, but when we look at the way things are happening in our world right now, it doesn't hurt to take a step back and think about being kind to each other and treating other people the way that we want to be treated. We have a monthly newsletter that's posted online, and in that newsletter it includes tips for parents and educators and for young people. Some of our activities, we do have a resource library in my office in the Martin Luther King Center, and it's certainly open and available for anyone who's interested. There are materials and resources for all ages. Our coalition offers scholarships annually to Washington County students, and they're not just for those who are going to pursue four-year institutions or community college. It's also students that are going to technical school, because we support that and think that's important as well. One of the things that we're most proud of is our elementary youth celebration that we do annually with your support. Each elementary school in the county identifies one student that has demonstrated a lot of the Character Counts pillars throughout the year. And we have a red carpet event that includes their parents, their school counselor and principal, and other family members. That day, we do truly roll out the red carpet, and we have certificates, T-shirts, and different things for the students. For the last few years, COVID kind of interfered with our red carpet rollout, and we had to do virtual meetings with the students, but we wanted to still recognize and acknowledge those students, and so we did. This year, we were able to have a face-to-face event, and we had it at the Hagerstown Community College, and some of you attended, and it was a really nice event, and it's always so good to see the parents and the students interact with each other, and and to let the parents know how proud we are that their students are demonstrating those pillars. So mark your calendar this year. Wednesday, May 10th, or I'm sorry, of 23, will be the next event, and we're here today to thank you for your past support, but also ask you for ongoing and continued support so we can make this an annual effort. Any questions?
Carol, that one at HCC we attended, that was, did you say this the following 2023 May would be the next one?
Would be the next one, yes,
Okay.
yes.
And if I understand, you've been invited back to that location, correct?
Yes, we are.
Commissioners, any comments or a motion to approve their request?
Motion to approve the request.
Second.
I have first and second. Any further discussion?
Hey, President Klein, from the Commissioner Contingency Fund, that'd be the recommendation that money would come from there.
Very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. I'd like for us to join over here. We have our proclamation. Very proud today on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners to present this proclamation for Character Counts Month, October 2022, whereas young people will be the stewards for our communities, nation, and the world in critical times, and the present and future well-being of the society requires an involved, caring, advised citizenry with good character. And whereas concerns about the character training of children has taken on a new sense of urgency as violence by and against youth threatens the physical and psychological well-being of the nation. Whereas character development is first and foremost an obligation of families through efforts by faith communities, schools, youth, civic, and human service organizations also play an important role in supporting family efforts by fostering and promoting good character. Every adult has the responsibility to promote the development of good character. Now therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County, Maryland, do hereby recognize October 2022 as Character Counts Month and encourage our citizens, schools, and businesses and government to support Washington County Character Counts program, awarded this day, the 27th day of September, by the Board of County Commissioners. Congratulations and thank you. That's yours.
Thank you.
She broke.
I broke it.
Great. Round of applause for character. Commissioners, join us up front. Well, thank you. Oh. Thank you very much. Hold my pen, I put it on my, I drop it on the ground.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, just one more. 1, 2, 3. All right.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So see you in May.
If not sooner. Thank you.
Good to see you.
The Smithsburg people here.
Mark's here. Jason's not here, but Mark's here.
Okay. Continuing with our agenda items, next up is Smithsburg High School Athletic Complex. Please come forward, introduce yourself and the matter, selves and the matter.
Good morning. My name is Mark Barnhart, the acting president to the Smithsburg Athletic Booster Club, Smithsburg High School. Appreciate the time that you guys have allotted us today to come before you, talk about our project, and ultimately ask for funds from the county. Won't spend a whole lot of time, but please open to questions. But clearly, Smithsburg High School is a 50-plus-year-old school. Therefore, the athletic facilities in many cases are about the same age. My booster organization has tried to make many improvements over the years, and now we are faced with a big project that we started pre-COVID that is really going to change basically the look of the facility for the students, not only of Smithsburg, but for the entire county. This came about because of some unsafe conditions that we are continuously being reminded of by other schools, by referees, by parents, a variety of community people that have attended events. The field is on a partial floodplain. We have had to move at least 6 events in the past season to North High, many of which are playoff events that we have lost all home field advantage. Not to mention no concession stands at that point, which eliminates revenue at the high school. I have a couple pictures if I could pass out. This really just tells the story in a nutshell. Jeff's my assistant. This is from October 31st, 2020. The field has set for over a year now, or about a year from COVID. This is after one football game against Boonesboro at Smithsburg, and I was called down the next morning. We got more complaints from parents about unsafe conditions, gouges in the field, mud everywhere, kids slipping, pulling muscles, hurting themselves. It was that point in time where our booster organization really wanted to step up our partnership with the Board of Education and promote a new field, a new track, and lights. The other unsafe conditions that we brought to our attentions by many referees are the lights. The lights are hand-me-downs from South Hagerstown High School, which my booster organization paid to install in 1994. And I think they're pretty much unworkable at this point because they're so old. So part of this project is for lights. The track is also 20 years old. We just had a regional event where we were also getting complaints that the lines were unseeable for county events. So that is part of the unsafe conditions. Obviously, if you've been to the school, you know the school is up top and everything below is for the athletes. So at any point in time, you could have 200 plus athletes at the bottom. I think 2 years ago, we had a burst go through. Kids had nowhere to go. So we have some bathrooms and some different facilities down there, but everything safe besides in buildings is up on the hill, which if you've ever ran that hill before, it can take a little time to get there. So part of this larger project is building team rooms, which we have, again, part of our MOU with the Board of Education, and that would be in phase 2. Other improvements are just, trying to have a press box for baseball and softball, just trying to build up the facilities here, also including practice fields, getting more practice fields, and how do we do that? How can we engineer the fields? So that is largely the big project that you can see on the first board, which we estimate to be approximately about $4 million total. Today, we want to be specific in the phase 1, which are lights, the AstroTurf field, new track, and moving the scoreboard to the other side of the field out of the way for the track events. That is estimated. The boosters went in and we paid $90,000 to have a design completely done. Again, the Board of Education led that process. So we know it to be estimated at $2.8 million. We've formed that second MOU with the board to incorporate that phase 1 in. The board has, as far as funds goes, what we have raised so far to that 2.8. The Board of Education has $600,000 into it. They have willingly are going to be paying for the lights. And we have a school fund from the Smithsburg High worth $175,000. So it's a total of $600,000 of that 2.8 nest egg, if you will, that we need. The remaining funds, I've worked diligently with our state representatives. We have $700,000 committed from the state of Maryland for the project in 2 different bond bills. And our Quarterman and Weibel have helped me get through the hurdles of applying and getting through those, but those are awarded and in place. The remaining $900,000 are boosters, right? So we run a steam and craft show and a golf event that generates $100,000 a year. I'm pretty proud of those 2 events. Just had steam and craft show this past weekend, and it was a record crowd. We anticipate, again, more funds coming in. So that is fundraising efforts. We have naming rights included in that. We have AC&T, First United that have come in for a total of $100,000 in naming rights. We have other trusts, other private donations that have come in for the boosters in that range. And the last one that really helped us was actually a $250,000 anonymous fund. Somebody has set a check into us that was very specific about the project, about the needs, and about wanting to help, and went through a company to give us $250,000. So that gets us to about $2.2 million. So we need to continue to generate $600,000. We feel good about generating that kind of money at this point. It's been tough when the COVID hit. It's trying to get money from a lot of different private companies and other companies that can't see a project right now, right? We haven't dug in the dirt. We haven't really done much. So basically with the board's help, with this request, with your help, we will get there. We feel confident that we will get the remaining funds required so we can actually get this project going for the kids and for the county. I think it's a worthy event, and so that's why we're here to ask for the funds.
Mark, I have just a quick question. It's more of a curiosity question.
Yes,
you said that, obviously, I've been on that field as a referee many times, but you've seen that, you say it's floodplain. Is this sort of patterned after North Hagerstown High? Not that you copy, but it's going to end up a similar product?
I would think it's a similar product. I'll let you, Jeff and his team has been over the design.
Yeah, in terms of, good morning, Commissioners. Jeff Brew, Chief Operating Officer, Washington County Schools. The project is similar, and I think when you think about the public-private partnerships that the Board of Ed has entered into with several booster groups, North High, when Casa Stadium was developed, team rooms were built on the Boonesboro campus several years ago. The additions at Williamsport High School, this is a very similar process, but if there's a field in the county that's a good candidate to be a turf field, it's Smithsburg High School because of the floodplain issues. So we'll be able to drain off water and have a surface that.
My second question is, so its floodplain will be corrected, at least it's a moisture problem, obviously, on what we see in here now. So that would somehow be corrected with the turf field and the.
With proper drainage, and we're working with the Department of Environment to make sure the engineered plans meet their perspectives.
It's just one corner of the field, so it's not like the whole field is on it. It's just that front corner there that runs down into the stream.
From the Board of Ed perspective, we would encourage the commissioners to join along with us in supporting this partnership with the Smithsburg Athletic Boosters. When we have opportunities that come in front of us to present to the Board of Ed, we often have a discussion with the board about, is this offer too good to pass up? And in a case of Smithsburg, 90% of the funding they were going after. They really asked very little from the Board of Ed. We have approximately $350,000 set aside actually for phase 2, which is for the team building, for the team rooms, concession stands, new ticket booth, new restrooms, to eliminate one of the safety concerns, which is when storms do arrive. At a time when you have athletes and families on the field, we have a place to secure athletes without having them run up the field through the woods in a storm. We are utilizing some of our federal COVID relief dollars to support the lighting upgrade, which is about another $400,000. And we also have offered a no-interest loan for the boosters to help them get across the line if they need it out of a fund we have of escheated funds. court-ordered funds to the Board of Education when heirs cannot be found to estates. We offer loans through that program. So I think this is a worthy ask of the commissioners, notwithstanding any other capital needs we have between the Board of Ed and the county commissioners, and the community is doing the big lift. And I think this is a great way to support the Smithsburg community and what they're proposing.
Jeff, what will the Board of Ed's contribution be? It sounds like you have a couple different phases you'll be funding this through, but what's the total contribution from Board of Ed?
Total contribution is, including the Smithsburg High School athletic funds, is probably close to $800,000. $350,000 in Phase 2 for the team rooms, concession stand. The approximate lighting cost is about $400,000 that we're doing here in Phase 1. And the athletic funds is $175,000 in this first phase as well.
Okay, so 800.
Yep.
So, I just have a question on the track. I can't read the plans, so it may be in here, but it's printing's small. So there'll be 42-inch lanes or 36?
Oh, boy.
I don't have that answer off the top of my head, but we can get that for you, Commissioner.
You don't want 36. You want 42. That way you can have 8 lanes of hurdles.
It's definitely 8 lanes. That was the big push. For some reason, that track used to have 8 lanes. They went to 7 probably to widen them.
Yeah, but
So
you definitely
basically,
want 42-inch lanes.
Yeah, the track to go to 8 lanes, all we have to do is move the visiting bleachers back about 6 feet, put up new fence, and then that way we can put that 8th lane in, hold state, regional events. I know the athletic director in school are already reaching out to other schools about hosting other playoff events now. I would also offer that we have at least 2, maybe 3 youth organizations that are ready to give us money in order to help rent the field in future. So they already play a little bit on the field now, so there's some future youth development that's also gonna happen from this.
One of the other things the Board of Ed did in the agreement with the Smithsburg Boosters to support the youth groups was basically a dollar-for-dollar match on their rental fees for the stadium. So if a booster group gives $10,000 towards the project, in rentals for the first 5 years that the stadium is opened, the Board of Ed will give a 50% discount on every event up to the point that they reach their match or the amount they donated. So in essence, we're giving those youth groups their money back.
Yeah, I love sports. I just want to make sure. Can you send me the information on how wide the new track lanes will be?
Absolutely.
And I'd be interested in knowing if there's going to be 2 jumping lanes.
It looks like the total width is 29 1/3 of a foot for all 8 lanes. I'll allow you to do the math.
There you go.
That's about right to me.
29 feet what?
4 inches.
Okay.
43.5 inches per lane.
Okay.
Okay, so you got that. If we'd approve this, where would, John, where would the funding come from?
I think I talked to Kelsey about it. I think out of capital reserves, I think that would be the place it would be. And I'll just mention, it's in your ARF, but I just want to mention it too. I have a unique perspective because I've been talking to Mark from a couple of different areas this project has started. But one thing that the boosters have thought about it, and obviously the school board has thought about too, is the replacement of this turf down the road. So they, as part of this whole project, they've created a capital reserve fund to try to help, I think, 50% of the cost of replacing this 10 years down the road. And also a maintenance, I know there's a maintenance reserve fund that, so as part of the project, maintenance, and I know you're buying the groomer and those kind of things. So they've learned all that along the way, and so part of this whole project is to plan to replace it down the road and not have this come back 10 years from now and say to the Board of Ed and to the county commissioners, well, how are we going to fund it? There'll be a cost to do that, but they're already setting up a fund, and that's part of their fundraising efforts, I believe, right, Mark? I think that's right.
Correct. That'll be part of the golf tournament and Steam and Craft Show moving forward. Obviously, we're no different than any other booster organization. We're buying uniforms. We're supporting the school when they need. We just bought hurdles and all sorts of things. But as this project goes over the past couple of years, we've really been putting everything as much as we can towards the project. But we will be generating those funds so they're available.
It sounds like a lot of this is also based on safety, which catches my attention. I've been down there in a thunderstorm, so I'd be okay with it.
Commissioners, do you have enough information to approve that today? And the
I think it's a
source-
good project. I love how it's not just one entity alone funding this project. It's multiple
A
groups.
lot of
Yeah, you
communities
would be-
support multiple.
Ton of communities
You would be surprised of how many people, and I can't even, there's another thing that the board has done, so when this gets bid out, Smithsburg's built on excavating companies, and we have ability to do in-kind work with the GC. So my plan is, when we have this pre-bid meeting, to bring those that we know that can move scoreboards, that can pull up a track, and we're hoping that will reduce the bid so we can put money into phase 2 and really get that going as well.
Commissioners, are you comfortable supporting it today?
I am.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Some comments for anyone? I do want to commend you for reaching out and trying to do it on your own instead of coming to county government for the money at first. I commend you for multiple partners, which I almost believe will make this a tremendous success. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
We have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. What part of the facility is going to be named after Buddy Orndorff?
That's 250.
Buddy had to say with it, it would probably be the field,
Well,
but
gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Commissioners.
thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the Edward J. Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant. Please come forward, introduce yourselves and the matter.
Good morning, Rachel Souders, Senior Grant Manager.
Captain Mark Knight, Sheriff's Office.
The Washington County Sheriff's Office is seeking approval to submit an application and accept awarded funding to the Edward J. Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program at the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services. The amount they're requesting is $35,525. The grant funding will fully support the purchase of an Avatar tactical robot. The Avatar will enhance the capabilities of the special response team by allowing them to quickly and safely inspect dangerous situations without sending personnel in blindly. The Avatar saves lives by keeping emergency responders out of harm's way. Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, is Mr. Curry here. Mr. Jacobs, you ready to present with Rick, or you? He's not here yet. Let's check to see if he's on the way. Have a brief recess till we get Mr. Curry here. That's why I didn't want to go to Texas Farming.
Governmental Cooperative Purchase, INTG 22-0097, for 2 ambulances for the Division of Emergency Services. Recommended motion moved by resolution for Fire and EMS Division of Emergency Services to purchase 2 F-550 ambulances at a cost of $320,740 each, for a combined total cost of $641,480. To utilize another jurisdiction's contract that was awarded by the Houston Galveston Area Council, contract number AM 10-20 to Fesco Horton's Emergency Vehicles of Grove City, Ohio. The acquisition ambulance will allow the division to to maintain a reserve of ambulance vehicles in order to respond promptly and effectively when managing emergency incidents within Washington County. Code of Public Law does allow for this board to procure goods and services through a contract entered into another government entity in accordance with the terms and conditions of that contract, as long as this board determines that that is acceptable. The county would benefit in a cost savings of a direct cost of not preparing the bid, evaluating the bid, solicitation. Funds are budgeted in the department CIP account is listed in the ARF. We have concurrence from the division director, and we also have the attachment of the quote submitted by FESCO. I just want to point out, if you look at the quote, the total cost of the quote is $962,220, and the ARF is asking for a total sum of $641,480. The quote is based on the total sum of 3 ambulances, but the budget will only allow for the department to purchase 2. Just want to point out the difference between the ARF and the quote, if you're looking at the quote.
Yeah. This is for the purchase of 2 ambulances, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, Commissioners, understand that the reason that it was presented as such is with the price increases, we felt that we would bring it before your behalf and request the additional funding to purchase the third. That said, currently the way it's written, the way that the HGAC contract is written is 4-3.
So basically, everything we're hearing from you or anybody else comes in here, inflation has caused us to knock off a 3rd ambulance unless we approve more funding.
Correct.
These ambulances will go into our reserve fleet, is that correct? So it can help any ambulance company in the county when their when their ambulance is down or it needs service, repairs, is that correct?
Yes, sir. So just like the reserve engine fleet that was approved back in May, the ambulances will do the same. We'll be able to move them throughout the county to support the needs of those departments when needed.
Because they just won't be stored in a garage. They'll be there to be used when needed.
Correct.
And today you're asking, let me look again, you're asking for approval for 2, but you're also asking possibly approval for 3.
Yes, so the additional amount, the contract is actually written for 3. We're requesting 2, and for the additional funds for the third if approved.
What's the amount for 3 total?
It's the $962,220. I think the budget was $750,000, so I think it's like $220,000 difference.
So so that's the difference is because of inflation.
Yes.
It's $220,000, and if we approved that, we'd have to know where that's coming from.
Right, I don't know. Have you
Correct.
talked to Budget and Finance about that? I don't know, have you?
It was presented to me at the last minute, and that's why I wanted to make reference of the ARF as opposed to the quote.
Okay, I mean, it's just so you know, so that's the first, I mean, I was hearing about that, and I don't think Budget and Finance had a chance to look at that. So if the commissioners are interested in that, I would ask that staff.
So could we approve the 2 today and come back with additional information for the 3rd? Is there time for that, or?
Do you need that?
So understand that there is a price increase coming October 1st with Horton and through FESCO, which is the vendor. I don't know if they'll honor the $962,000 price for that.
I mean,
So I guess for me, you were to order 3. So what was the original amount for 3 ambulances?
962.
$750,000 was originally quoted.
For 3.
So we could,
For three ambulances.
we could take it out of capital reserves.
For 3 ambulances,
Some of that surplus we
$962,220.
put into capital reserves, and part of the thought was that, you know, we knew projects and things were going to increase in cost, so I think that's right?
So I understand that, but you're saying the $750,000 would have covered all 3 ambulances or just 2?
So originally, we requested $750,000
For 3 ambulances.
for 3.
And now
Due
3
to the price increases, it's above that cap.
May I make a suggestion if possible? I think it's important, I think we all did, to bring back the the fleet replacement, apparatus fleet replacement into our CIP budget. We don't meet again until October 1st when the price increase, we know there's going to be a price increase, there is with everything. Would we be able to approve funding for 3 ambulances? And we have, I think we would have the luxury of time of deciding where that $220,000 would come from. We could potentially take from surplus, is that?
Which is originally capital reserve.
Right, I think some of that
That's
money,
where he has it
so
right now.
that money from surplus, some of it has gone into capital reserve, so you're right.
So
That would be where it would come from.
And commissioners understand that these will be turnkey, but also, just like the engines, we're 24 to 28 months out from delivery.
So my question is, if we approve 3 today, where's the additional funding coming from? Capital reserve.
Capital, yeah.
Capital reserve, which is where the surplus, some of the surplus funds are.
You know, I agree with Commissioner Kiefer. I think with what we're facing challenges with EMS, and we have all talked about a reserve fleet for 2 years, I mean, I'm okay with it.
So what's the price increase? Do you have any idea on what the price increase is
220.
going to be?
220.
No October 1st price increase.
7% is what they're anticipating.
Okay. And then what's the life expectancy, or how long do you plan on using this ambulance?
In a reserve fleet, in a reserve fleet based on the call load, I would anticipate at least 10 years per unit.
I'd motion to approve the 3 ambulances with the excess approximately 220,000 coming from capital.
second.
A first and second, any further discussion?
So just to be clear, because I'm going to have to update this resolution, 3 ambulances for a combined purchase price of $962,220.
That's what I'm hearing. Thank you for the clarity. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Faces of Farming. Susan, please introduce yourself in the matter.
Good morning, Commissioners. Today, I'm here to present to you our new Faces of Farming videos that we have for you. Faces of Farming is an agricultural-focused video marketing campaign the Department of Business Development has put forward with showcasing 2 local Washington County farms each month for the last year. The Faces of Farming marketing videos will be showcased on our website as well as Facebook and other social media platforms. And we target a new industry and highlight a local farmer from that specific agricultural industry each month. Washington County's ag business represents the backbone of the county's landscape. With over 900 operating family farms and over $150 million in market value of products sold, agriculture remains the largest economic driver in Washington County. The Faces of Farming marketing campaign will aim to educate residents in Washington County, along with the surrounding states and region, about the economic impact of the ag industry here. Additionally, these videos will be used for agricultural education to numerous streams around Washington County, such as 4-H, FFA, meetings, Ag Expo and Fair, and they'll be available on the Washington County Ag app, as well as our website. Today, I'll be presenting Chandler Fishak from Smithsburg Tractor Society and Lori Anderson with Painted Pastures. Enjoy.
Hi, my name is Lori Anderson. The name of the farm is Painted Pastures and live outside of Smithsburg, Maryland. We raise Nigerian dwarf goats. We started the business about 6 years ago. Used to raise sheep and decided to get into the Nigerian dwarf goats, which actually helps with making the soap that we sell at the farm store. I actually make lotions, goat milk lotions. We make goat milk liquid soaps and bath bombs and whipped butter and sugar scrubs. What it does is help people with dry skin, eczema, psoriasis, inflammation. That actually helps and puts all the good benefits back into your skin. I've always had a passion with flowers ever since I've been a little girl.
I love connectivity. Should we try the other one? Oh, we started over.
We gotta start over again, right?
Reboot.
Sorry.
Hi, my name is Lori Anderson. The name of the farm is Painted Pastures, and live outside of Smithsburg, Maryland. We raise Nigerian dwarf goats. We started the business about 6 years ago. Used to raise sheep and decided to get into the Nigerian dwarf goats, which actually helps with making the soap that we sell at the farm store. I actually make lotions, goat milk lotions. We make goat milk liquid soaps and bath bombs and whipped butter and sugar scrubs. What it does is help people with dry skin, eczema, psoriasis, inflammation. That actually helps and puts all the good benefits back into your skin. I've always had a passion with flowers ever since I'm up on a dairy farm, and I always imagine growing flowers, making bouquets. So I fenced off an area, and it's about a ½ acre. It started turning into small rows of different flowers like your dahlias, zinnias. So I made a little farm stand and put it at the end of the driveway, and it just seemed like people were picking it up and buying flowers, and then eventually it kind of turned into a little small business. My favorite thing about this property is that it brings people in. The goats actually are so affectionate. People can feel how sweet and kind these animals are. And then what people can see is the beauty of this place, and it makes people realize that it is a little piece of heaven.
I'm Chandler Fishak. I'm with the Smithsburg Tractor Society, and we're here in our museum in Smithsburg, Maryland. Agriculture has always been in my blood. It's been a long family thing with the Fishaks. They have been farmers since the beginning of time, and I always wanted to continue on that tradition. It was very difficult. We didn't have a lot of farming ground, so I have rented 2 fields. We're farming about 5 acres right now, and we're enjoying every minute of it. We're growing sweet corn and field corn. We're growing Bloody Butcher corn, which was grown in the 1800s in Washington County. We're making grits and cornmeal out of that. The sweet corn is a peaches and cream. It's a very sweet bicolor variety, and it's amazing. Everybody loves it. And we're going to be doing wheat this winter that was developed in Washington County also in the 1800s. We enjoy the historical aspect of the agriculture. All of our equipment is very old. The tractor that started it all is in 1939, and the planter that we're using is 100 years old. So we just love the old stuff. We love working it. We love keeping it alive and keeping it going. So it just made sense to keep the crops the same time frame as the equipment we're using. We call this field Weavers to pay homage to Mr. Weaver, who was a very upstanding citizen in the community. He took part in the Lions Club, he worked on lawnmowers, and he farmed this ground as a young man. So we're paying respects to him since he's passed on, and we're continuing on his legacy. I believe the future of the Tractor Society and the future of agriculture go hand in hand. Our goal is to keep the next generation interested in farming, keeping it alive, keeping the public involved. Anybody out there that has a tractor that doesn't know what to do with it but loves being around it is welcome to come join us. We have all the equipment to hook to it. We have the places for them to play. And we just want to get everybody involved so that we can keep agriculture alive in Washington County.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is discussion regarding proposing zoning text amendment. Jill?
Yeah.
Jill Baker,
Obviously,
please.
yeah, I mean, Joel's.
Please introduce yourself in the matter.
As you may recall, I think this was brought forward, I think by Commissioner Burkett last week, and unfortunately he couldn't be here today, but. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jill Baker, Director of the Department of Planning and Zoning. I apologize I wasn't here last week to be privy to the conversations that the Commissioners were having regarding a proposed text amendment for the Highway Interchange Zoning District. So after staff went through and reviewed the proposed text amendment, what we did is we went ahead, and thank you Megan Jenkins and our GIS coordinator put this together for us, basically showing you the effects of the proposed text amendment, pardon me, which calls for any new entrances to either state intersections, state route intersections, or at-grade railroad crossings over state roads to be at least 1,000 feet apart. So the first map you'll see there is just the overall Washington County. You can see generally it only obviously affects our growth areas because that's where the highway interchange zoning is situated. I'm gonna jump to the urban growth area map that shows you the area that surrounds Hagerstown, Williamsport, and Funkstown. Just to orient you, the yellow circles are the ones where state routes intersect. The blue is where there is an at-grade crossing, and the hatched green area is where the highway interchange zoning is. So you can see it mainly affects, as you would expect in the highway interchange zoning, it affects our highway interchanges. So several parcels that exist along those routes could be affected. I then also had a blow up done of both the town of Hancock and the town of Clear Spring, which both contain some highway interchange zoning that's under county jurisdiction, to show you the effects of what that does to those areas. So before I get into that, I think there's one important thing that I need to draw your attention to that could complicate, I think, what you want to accomplish here, and that's the fact that we do not regulate state highway entrances. We have absolutely no authority to do so. The State Highway Administration, on behalf of the Maryland Department of Transportation, are the ones who handle entrance permits onto state routes. So what that means is that for the county to install such an amendment as the one being proposed, it will inherently cause a legal conflict down the road when somebody comes in with a site plan or something and the State Highway Administration has approved an entrance permit, yet our ordinance says that they can't have it. So that causes an inherent legal problem for multiple properties in Washington County. So really for that reason alone, I don't know that we would recommend this particular language moving forward. I guess we would want to talk a little more about what the concerns are and what we can do to sort of appease the concerns of the commissioners to move something forward that hopefully accomplishes what you hope to do there. I mean, I have some other stuff, but I think that's the real takeaway from this. So I kind of was hoping to have a little bit of a discussion to see your thoughts, concerns, where you want to go with this.
Well, Jill, the text amendment I'm reading, it says grade railroad crossings over a state road. Well, why just state road? Why not county? What's less important or more important?
That does bring the concern of the arbitrary and capricious statement, which is brought up a lot in legal jargon when you deal with rezoning cases. That would be a question probably raised by an aggrieved person is, well, what makes a state route any more dangerous at a railroad crossing than a county route?
And that caught my attention. And then, are we targeting zoning here? Is this target zoning? I mean, I make my living dealing with zoning, and some of it seems sort of...
Depending on how you read the amendment, and that was another, I guess, question we have. If the purpose of the amendment was to be cumulative, meaning that both of those conditions would need to be met, meaning that if there was any entrances that would be located both within 1,000 feet of a state highway intersection of two routes, and within 1,000 feet of that railroad crossing, that actually does become a targeting problem, because there's really only one situation in Washington County where that actually occurs, and that is in the Williamsport area, the blue dot that you see down there in the Williamsport area. So if that was the intent of that language, then yeah, that becomes a problem. That becomes sort of a targeted regulatory taking. If it's meant to be separate, where it's kind of either or both, then it's less about targeting and more about the regulatory taking part of it. Because a lot of these, if we did have, and I'm not, and again, I'm saying we don't really have the right to take that frontage away because State Highway Administration regulates entrances. Should we take away road frontage and not give access to these parcels, you get into this situation of a regulatory taking. And then you're just lost in the court system when it comes to that aspect of things. It's not like it would be a full taking, because there is a section in here that talks about this really only applies to those that generate more than 25 vehicular trips in an hour. So you might have, gosh, I don't even know. You might have a very, very small store in the HI that would fall under that. For the most part, I would say most of the uses in the HI district would probably meet or exceed that 25 vehicular trips in an hour. That's sort of the intention of the HI.
I guess for me and the commissioners, my thoughts on it is why are we bothering with this, and why do we want to put more rules and regulations on developers and people? Is there a reason why we would do this? That's all I need to know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, this came to staff, and staff was just evaluating it. So it's a good question for the commissioners.
Just more rules and regulations against people, and why? Just why would we do this?
I guess that's the discussion we sort of wanted to have, is what the concern is, because there's a couple of things that come into play here. First, with state highway routes, just as we would with county routes, every new entrance that exceeds these standards, as far as the 25 trips or whatnot, we basically require a traffic impact study. where we have a professional engineer evaluate the road networks, tell us what the trips per day would be, where the trips are coming from, where they're going, how they would impact our existing highway network. In addition, the at-grade railroad crossings, they have their own separate federal regulation manual that talks about impacts upon railroad crossings and things like that. I mean, I know the county commissioners have a line item within the CIP specifically targeted for railroad crossings on county routes. There's no funding in that currently, but we have in the past used money to upgrade those intersections. So if there's a concern about railroad crossings, you know, on at least county routes, we can definitely have that conversation with our engineering department and see, you know, what we may need to do there. But unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, the State Highway Administration really sort of has autonomy when it comes to their routes. They regulate their own routes, they maintain their own routes, it's their jurisdiction. So I guess that's the conversation I sort of wanted to have today is what is it that we were hoping to accomplish, and is there some way we can help you get to that point? I don't think this is the way that it's going to accomplish what you want to, I think.
Commissioners, comments or thoughts?
I think it may be helpful if we could have a larger conversation on how our processes work in terms of a planning commission decision, a BZA decision, something that ultimately makes its way to this group, the commissioners, to decide. I think there's a lot of public frustration I hear from my constituents, that they hear when a group of citizens come in to voice concern about the Beaver Creek project that we heard earlier this summer, springtime. That neighborhood came out. They feel their concerns were heard. When the Williamsport community came out pertaining to the project development on Spielman Road, they feel their concerns were not addressed. So I think there's a consensus among our public that they feel that there's different treatments for different projects. And, name, is it the neighborhood? Is it the developer? Who is it that the momentum for swings and they get their way? But it seems like there's been the citizens, as they've expressed their concern to me, they feel they're being treated differently with their concerns versus other projects that are very similar in terms of location along an interstate or whatever that project might be. So I think if we could address those issues, the purpose of those separate boards, why there's some decisions that are made by the commissioners, why there's some decisions that are made not by the commissioners for very similar projects. And from a layperson standpoint, they're similar projects. I understand a building is different, every building is different, every location is different, every zoning is different, but from the citizen standpoint, they feel they're being treated different. When one group can come in numbers and get their way, and the commissioners agree not to approve a project, and another group comes in equal numbers, and their concern is not addressed in the same way. I think there's a lot of consternation among people because it's so different. And quite honestly, as a commissioner, I sometimes have a difficulty explaining that. So I think that might be a good place to start.
Okay.
The different boards that we have, their different roles, why one project might end up on this board, BZA to decide, and why another project might come before the commissioners to decide. I think that
Joey, my question is, Beaver Creek was different from the Bowman decision because Beaver Creek came from us because it was the court trial. Was there not a court hearing for the Bowman group to do that project, and that's how it went through BCA?
So without getting
decision years ago on that one?
Not necessarily. So without getting too far into the weeds just yet, and Commissioner Baker asked for a very similar request a few weeks ago, and I am putting that together. Just so you know, it's not easy.
It's complicated.
Even for me, who's been doing this for a while now. Not to get too far into the weeds, but the bottom line is that it's based upon what the commissioners believe to be acceptable uses in particular zoning districts and ones that they don't feel to be acceptable uses. And then there is the gray area that sits in between that, which is the special exception. And the special exception basically means that generally the use is acceptable under that zoning district. However, it goes through the Board of Zoning Appeals for hearing to make sure that they are acceptable within a particular neighborhood. So it looks at it on a case-by-case basis. So it really has nothing to do with who the applicant is or how many people show up in opposition or in favor of the amendment. It really has nothing to do with that. It has to do with what uses that certain zoning districts are appropriate or not. And that's legislated by you as a group here in terms of the zoning ordinance. Now, as far as the special exception goes, that is something that basically what is determined is that you as a group have said, we believe that that use is an acceptable use within that district, assuming that where they locate it is appropriate and logical to the criteria that you set forth in the zoning ordinance. And that's what the BZA uses to adjudicate that. They use that criteria that we outline within the zoning ordinance to say, do they meet this? Do they meet this? Do they meet this? And that's what they adjudicate. So they have a little bit stricter rules in terms of what they can approve or should approve, because if they say, well, there's just a whole lot of people here against it, it will go through the court system and they will be overturned. It's not about how many people show up. It's about whether or not they meet that. And I think that's where you're talking about is that's where people don't understand the concerns. And that's where we need to start talking about whether the use is appropriate or not.
Well, I think, you made the point, the commissioner, I forget exactly how you worded it, but the commissioners, basically you were alluding to set a trajectory, a path for the county, and there's so many issues that we decide.
Right, right.
And with these zoning issues, is it an appropriate fit for a community? The citizens that reach out to me say, we elect you to make those decisions, not an unelected board to make those decisions. And I grapple with how I can respond to that, because they're right. I mean, we appoint that board, but at the end of the day, it's not us making that decision, it's the BZA board making a certain decision. And when you talk about what's appropriate for a community, I think it's my job as a commissioner, elected by the people, to hear their concerns with what's appropriate in the neighborhood where they put their head down to rest at night, not me. And, there was a great article done by the Herald Mail. I don't know if Mr. Lewis is the author of it, racially or not, that talked about human trafficking. And some of these businesses that we talk about, we need those types of businesses, but we also have to understand what comes along with that too. And, our nexus with 3 highways here in Washington County, major interstate highways, 68, 70, 81, we need to know what those decisions may potentially open up in the future, and just be cognizant of that. And the best way I can do that is by listening to my citizens when they have a question, when they have a concern, and taking their concern seriously. So maybe that's the crux of this conversation. If we can have a better outline, a better understanding of how those separate boards function, what our role is, and if there are changes that we can make in how those processes work.
Okay.
Absolutely, we can do that.
Jill, do you have direction now?
I have that.
Commissioners, we're running behind on our agenda. Do you have direction on what to come back with?
Yes, sir.
Jill, you said you're putting together the information that I requested.
Yes,
a
yes.
week or so ago.
Which is basically exactly what Commissioner Kiefer has asked for, and I will put that together. And then I will work with the county administrator to determine whether you want that as a separate presentation or just sort of just a handout or whatever.
And along with that information, I'd like, and I can't remember, I'd like to know when the commissioners agreed to let certain boards make certain decisions.
Sure.
What the time frame of that, the date? Because when I first became a county commissioner, I thought all of the decisions come to the county commissioners.
No, it's never been that way.
Okay.
But I'll put that together for you for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll just say, I think my recommendation will be, is we'll set aside significant time on the agenda to have that discussion. Talking about the
Sure,
planning
we can do
commission, the
that.
Board of Zoning Appeals, and any of the questions you have. So
Yeah.
we'll set aside enough time to do that as a separate agenda item so we don't get bogged down in anything else.
We can do that.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, discussion regarding potential process for nonprofit. Just want to remind the commissioners, we do have closed session after this. Don't want to cut off our discussion, but be aware of our time constraints.
Yeah, so I'll just say, yeah, I mean, obviously, this isn't a decision that needs to be made today, so with timing, to keep timing in mind, you can have as long and short of discussions as you like today. Obviously, we wanted to give the commissioners some time to talk about what kind of process or where those funds should be and how you should think about distributing those funds. Susan Buchanan and I did have a discussion about that. So we have some ideas about some existing programs that are in place now that the commissioners may be able to put that money that you set aside for nonprofits in those current programs, which would allow us to go ahead and have additional money to distribute, but they all have their process and procedures and criteria already in place. If the commissioners want to establish a new program, that's going to be a longer.
I would like to hear your suggestions, I think.
So, Susan, if you want to come up, I told her I wouldn't put her on the spot, but I guess I'm going to put her on the spot. Obviously, you know Susan Buchanan, and we met about this last week, so we do have some ideas. So, Susan, if you want to.
Sure. Susan Buchanan, Director, Office of Grant Management. As I've been listening to the conversations the last several weeks, I have been putting my mind to what potential tools I have in my office that could assist this process potentially, and I just want to offer, I know there had been a couple mentions of looking at existing programs that are already in place that maybe could be utilized for these additional funds. Currently, we do have the Nonprofit Recovery Grant that is accepting applications now through October 19th. This is funded with ARPA funding, and it is based upon helping nonprofits who have been impacted by COVID-19 in a vast majority of ways, fundraising efforts decreasing, costs increasing, increased needs for services. This is something that we have that we could have put aside $1.5 million of the ARPA money. We don't know yet, we're early in the process, whether we'll receive more requests than that 1.5 million would be able to assist with. So if there was available extra funding to put into that funding, once that funding pot would run out, that would be one potential use of some of these surplus funds to allow everyone who had a need COVID-related, who applied and was eligible to receive funding.
So in the nonprofit recovery grant that we're doing now, your suggestion, I just think I heard, would be, one suggestion might be to take whatever we decide, put in that, and you continue with the process with county money.
Correct. It would be once all the ARPA money was expended, if we had 10 applications that were eligible that would have been funded, if we had those funds, we could just use some of this funding to backfill in to allow all those applications to be funded. Now, we don't know how many we're going to receive. We don't know what that need would be, but that would be just one thing for consideration.
And that is a program that obviously this board had authorized that 1.5 million out of ARPA funds. Susan and her team in grant management developed that program, developed the criteria, and it's all going to be handled internally by her team.
Correct.
So
Does that program have a deadline to submit?
Yes, October 19th.
October 19th.
Is that our deadline or ARPA fund deadline?
That's our deadline.
that's our deadline. So that could be extended if
That
you
could
decide
be moved around. But then there is one, looking at that, if we move it too far off, we wouldn't be able to get the funds out until so that it just moves that deadline down, then the funding doesn't get to the applicants until later in the game.
Right, so I get, yeah, so the 1.5 million, we probably want to stick with that deadline. If the county puts additional funds in, we may be able to
Right,
extend that.
I anticipate.
Use that procedure.
Another option is our community organization funding. The community organization funding, as you're aware, this board does have, appoints a committee. Each commissioner has a committee member on the COF committee. They accept applications every year. We put that application out in November. It comes back in December. This is all part of our budgetary planning. It would be FY24 funding. There would be a possibility, and you could even do a mixture of the two if you wanted to put funds in one program and then have the remaining funding go into another. the COF money, you could add additional money to that program to allow more applications to be funded through that.
So the board, the COF board would have to agree to that too. You haven't obviously approached them yet.
I have not approached them yet with that. We could add the additional money, it would just increase the amount of the money they could give out. It would be all part, it wouldn't be a new application, it would be all part of the
But
existing.
COF takes applications to be considered, so we'd have to open that up for the public, correct?
No, they take the applications, they accept the applications through our office. The committee reviews and scores the applications, and then ranks and makes considerations. Then we bring it forth in a commissioner meeting in usually March as part of the budget process, and then it is reviewed.
But we ask people to apply to be considered.
Yes.
So if we would add additional funding, we'd want to ask for applications to be open for other people to apply again or not?
My vision for that was, when I was discussing it, would be to add, right now we have $1 million in the funding pot for COF. If you wanted to add an additional amount, it would just open up to be able to have additional requests funded. It wouldn't be a new application. It would all go through the same process as the original.
My question is, why wouldn't we open it up for additional applicants to apply, since they now know the pot would be increased?
They could.
Well,
It wouldn't be a limitation on who could apply, other than the basic eligibility, the 108
But
list
don't every year we
requirements.
accept applications to be considered for the COF? Is that how that works?
Right, they have not,
Yes,
and we
they
have
all
not,
apply,
we have not done that
yes.
yet. Right, we have not, those applications are not.
No, we have an application that we do every year, and that hasn't been
So
released yet. Yes.
Now, you do have to be, just two things, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, so under COF funding, you have to be on the 1108 list,
Yes.
which I think most of our nonprofits in the community are on the
Yes.
1108 list. And also, that's an opportunity to make capital requests under the COF, which
They
is
can
not under the other program you talked about, right?
The nonprofit recovery grant is an operating cost grant.
So what we're suggesting is, that it would, the program that's already in place, that the commissioners would add additional funds to that. So instead of it being $1 million, well, for both, but you're talking about COF right now, I think it's the commissioners have already put $1 million into that program. So if you don't do anything else, those applications will go out, people will apply, the committee will review it, and they will, will distribute the money, the $1 million. But if you put another $1 million into it, then they would have $2 million.
Right.
So we wouldn't change the application process, but everybody, people would be eligible to submit, and then the funding, instead of only having $1 million to distribute, I shouldn't say only, instead of having $1 million to distribute, they'd have $2 million to
But
distribute.
my question, maybe I'm not understanding, when people who haven't applied for CF be opened up to apply to be eligible?
Every year, COF is open to all organizations who are on the 1108 list.
Okay,
And not
so-
everybody applies every year, but it is open, and it's,
So if we would add additional money, would we want to open that up for more groups to be considered for the 108 list?
I would have to defer to Kirk on that, whether they could be added.
Yeah, I mean, there's a statutory process that governs how organizations get on the 1108 list, and they have to make application by a certain date, and then there has to be a public hearing, and the commission decides.
Who sets that
whether they
date?
want to be on. It's set by law on the Code of Public Local Laws.
Is there a way that we could use the community organization funding process and people, but not restrict the applicants to be a standing member of the 1108 list?
And you don't even know if the 5 members of that CF group really want to do it or if
You'd
they're
have to ask
available.
them.
That's,
Right, we'd have to talk to them about that.
because I understand those applications at deep from over the years, some of these people put 45 minutes in per application individually, right? They review the applications individually, then they come together as a
Yes.
group and make the decision. So before we even think that has that group, are they willing to meet and do that?
Well, they
So
have to be asked, yeah.
that's all, this is just, unless they would agree,
Right, so that's,
it's a lot of work to put on volunteers.
I agree.
that's another option. That's another option.
And that's one of
is to have
the
that group
disadvantages of
on a
using that
separate program.
process.
Now, what Wayne said, use that same process with like the 108 might be a good suggestion.
Yeah,
We
you're
could-
still
But
using
we
the same.
still have the
108
committee
was-
members.
I mean, there's over 100 groups on that 108
Because you said
list.
one can't do operating, but the other can do capital, or there's a mix that needs that might be done, but one can't do capital, one can, isn't that what you just
The
mentioned?
nonprofit recovery grant that's currently out there only is for operating. The COF grant, it will fund operating and capital expenses. But it does have the downfall.
I think you're at the point where, COF would do it all, do what Commissioner Kiefer said, if you don't have to restrict it, just to make it all fair. And then you'd have to, obviously, we have to ask the people if they're willing to do it. They might say no.
Right.
So then we have to go back to drawing board. Then the first one, the ARPA, you mentioned, I'll use the figure, $1 million in each. Are you allowed to commingle our money with the ARPA money?
We wouldn't be commingling it. We would,
Make a distinct
a
separation.
distinct separation where we would be tracking them separately.
Because the ARPA funds, we have to account for those
We
funds.
would maintain the deadline for ARPA, and anybody after that would be the division of the line where our funds begin. Is that what you're saying?
I wasn't, my initial thought would be to keep the deadline the same, but I anticipate we could easily have $2 million in requests, but we have $1.5 million. We would pay out the ARPA money first, and then when they run out, it would be just, it would go through this other, other.
Susan, what's required of a nonprofit to submit a funding request through the Nonprofit Recovery Grant? I know through the COF funding, some organizations submit a binder, and if our deadline's October 19th, there might not be an opportunity to compile everything that's needed for an application
We tried to when developing the application for this new grant, we tried to make it as user-friendly as possible. It doesn't have as many attachments. I think it's a pretty, we've had a couple organizations that have already submitted it, and it was just released last Wednesday. It's all electronic. It's not a big binder. We've tried to really make it easy for
So the October
nonprofits to
19th
get it.
deadline could be possible?
Yes. Oh, yeah, October 19th for what we're doing now for the nonprofit grant is a reasonable timeframe for that application.
What's the instructions to move forward? To come back with more details?
I think come back with a solid, what we can do, and then it's determine how much money we're gonna put in something. I wanna know who's gonna screen it, who's gonna vet it. I personally don't want to give the money out. I mean, I think it's perceived as I think I'd like to approve it, but I don't wanna be the one saying I'm gonna give $200,000 to this group. I think it should be vetted better. I think it should be more other than me to vet it and then bring it to us for a final decision. I think we should have a final decision and a chance to review. I don't care if it's ARPA, I don't care if it's COF, as long as it's fair. And then it'd be up to commission to determine how much money, and I mean, that's pretty much all I'm interested. I think it's pretty, in a sense, it's pretty simple, at least for me, sitting here. For you, it might not be as simple, but.
Well, in all fairness, I'm on the George Edwards $50 million fund that was awarded by the state, 20 million, 10, 10, 10, and they're going through this exact same conversation that we're having, so just if it's any solace, it's difficult for them as well. So it's not something easy, but instructions, commissioners, do you want her to come back with something more specific so we can decide? Because right now we're talking in generalities. You don't have the COF confirmed, and
Right, so I guess we can reach out to the COF committee.
I can reach out to the COF committee and see their willingness.
Okay, so there's a possibility that we could use both ARPA, additional money to the ARPA separate of not mingling the money, and there's another option of using COF, and we could use one or a combination of both. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right, and there's two different options with COF from what I've heard today. Is that one was to just put additional money in the COF fund and let it go through like the normal process. They just have more money to distribute.
Okay.
The second part of that is to talk to the COF committee to see if they were willing to review those other applications separately.
Do a separate.
And do that as separate thing. So that's two different things.
Commissioners, are you okay with those concepts being brought to be brought back and finalized?
One quick question.
Sure.
The Nonprofit Recovery Grant, is there a maximum amount of money?
40,000.
40,000?
Right.
Okay.
COF, there's not.
COF, there is no maximum.
Okay. All right, anything else you need?
I think I have my marching orders.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a difficult task. Thank you for your patience with us. Motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much.